Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I have a very special guest and had to pull some major strings to be able to get this guest, and she's very limited time. I'm here with Sara, and Sara is, you would say you're the head of, I guess, epidemiology.
Yes, that is my field of research.
Okay. So you alone are working on the coronavirus vaccine.
Well, I'm actually one of many people working on this particular case.
Okay. And what would you say in the eyes of like, are we going to be over this in like the next year?
I'd say that there's a high risk that we may never get through this based on some areas that are being rushed.
Okay. That's a shocker for a lot of people listening to this. And I just want to say how that's not what Sara does. She is actually not a person that is the head of epidemiology, but anybody listening, especially people coming across this podcast, probably for the very first time, and it's going to be your episode. You shared it on your story. Say hi, Sara. You've been on in the past.
Hello, guys.
Sara is a very, very talented welder, and also at the same time, she's an amazing person. But here's where the funny thing is. What I was trying to show as an example is called linguistical programming, I would say, which is an area of saying certain words to make you think a certain thing based on, we see it in debates all the time. Someone's a good conversationalist. I'm okay with the conversation. I can hold my own, I think. But when it comes to being able to sway a certain side and opinion, much like you would see in a court trial or much like you would see on the news, certain key phrases that are not necessarily, well, they are a form of brainwashing. But see, here's the thing. When you say brainwashing, what do you immediately think of? Like, first image that comes to your mind when I say brainwashing?
News media.
News media. Okay. For a lot of people out there, they're thinking it's like Clockwork Orange, keeping your eyes open, this type of thinking that's very, very drastic and very, very severe, which might have been done back in the day, but is not necessary. It's kind of taken a new form, much like talking to someone has taken a new form into cell phones. So linguistical programming, I started off this podcast with those questions because people that are listening to this podcast for the very first time are going to hear these types of things, and they're going to be like, oh my God, are you serious? We're never going to get through the pandemic. Well, she's a researcher in her field. Without looking any information up, you basically gave yourself a mini heart attack already. And from people that have seen you in the past, they know that's not what you do. But for the people that might have come across your story of sharing this episode, that's the first thing that's going to come to their mind. Is like, hold on a second, what? Think and listen and watch what you're soaking up the information in. Don't run with the first thing, which was kind of the whole point of this whole thing. Was I think that people are seeing something and it's a fault of the news media, which is a good example that you said when you think of programming, because I'll be watching it and now they're talking about I think it's B117 is the new variant in the UK of the coronavirus, and they're talking about how it is ravaging over there and none of these vaccines are going to be able to really stop that, so we have to still take these extra precautions. It's keeping you in fear. It's like we talked about before, goal posting. It's the fact of they made you do something, you did it out of fear, and now you're pissed off and you're like, I'm not going to take it anymore, and now they're trying to bring back the fear. It happens in a lot of forms.
Oh, yeah. I feel like critical thinking is no longer a thing anymore because if you really look at everything that's being presented to us, none of it makes sense. None of it adds up. And I feel like people are just so quick to believe, just like you said, because of their title or whatever. And it's like, how do we even know they're telling the truth, even to the information that's provided to us on Google? And I've always considered myself as woke or whatever. I took a class back in the 8th grade and I don't remember what the class was called, but it basically taught that there's only 6 people who really own the media, and basically that they can brainwash you. And ever since then, I feel like I really never watched the news. And then once this last election happened, I started really looking into everything and really doing research. And it really blows my mind how many people just don't look into things, don't do independent research. And even in one conversation, like 2 things they'll say, it's like, but that doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. We should wear masks, but you can go into a restaurant and meet your friends from another household and then take them off. but school kids can't go to school. Like, I don't know, just make it make sense. Like, none of it makes sense. And I feel like it's so hard to even trust the information that's available to us these days.
I mean, don't you know the new thing now is you can wear 2 masks or you wear 3 masks? I mean, I've heard of, wearing 2 condoms. I guess that might reduce the chance of having a kid if it happens, but I don't
Oh my God.
I don't know I know plenty of people. I actually talked to a couple of my friends. They're doing like one of my buddies, Ian, his episode's coming up. He was doing like a jogging, like running through the woods, just doing his little mile runs and stuff. And a woman he passed a couple people and they kind of looked at him because he wasn't wearing a mask. And then a woman had stopped him and said, "Hey, put your fucking mask on." And he was like, "The fact that you stopped me to say that is now we're spending way more time, around each other where it can get you contaminated if I did have coronavirus, which I don't." And
Right.
it's this whole idea of policing, and people, we can complain about the government wanting too much power or having this sense of power, but there's people that do that too. There are people that are cops that shouldn't be cops based on, I think we all know at least one person that when you give them a little bit of authority, they take that and they run a mile. Be like, "Hey, your job is to raise the flagpole in front of the school every morning." And then they go to monitoring the halls and telling people not to leave their classrooms without a hall pass. It goes farther and farther every single time. So if you're not interested in all the stuff that's going on now, which a lot of future generations are not, they don't really care about all this government conspiracy type talk or anything like that because they're like, that's not true. Because back in their day, they didn't have that. They didn't have the information it was happening, but they just didn't have the foresight that, we're living in this age of truth. I would say I literally just read an article about this where someone was saying everything is being exposed with how we have all this valuable information at our fingertips. Is that necessarily a good thing? And what's being exposed that maybe shouldn't be being exposed? Things that are being picked and prodded. I know there was an article on Wikipedia talking about how 87% of the articles or editing on Wikipedia is mostly done by men. And they were complaining that now women aren't having a voice in that. And I was looking at it, I was like, is it the fact that there aren't a lot of people that are publishing articles that are women, or is it a factor of, and no, they were like, no, apparently they were skewing the results for women. They would look at it less likely than it would for a guy's article or a guy editing it. And I'm just like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, this is the dumbest shit to me, where I'm like, can I get the right information? Does it have to be by a certain person? Does it have to be this? I want to talk to someone who's an expert in that field. When I wanted to know if dinosaurs weren't real or were fake, I talked to a paleontologist. When I wanted to know about the Titanic being a conspiracy, I had an underwater archaeologist. Fucking talk to some people and get more information than just the very first headline you see. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that makes me think, number one, I feel like there's just so much hate going on, like people policing each other. Like, I see so much hate, like, for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, or being vaccinated or not being vaccinated. And my first thought is, being hateful is never going to get like the opposing view to change their mind. You know what I mean? So it really doesn't, it's really not helping anything. And then my second thought with what you just said is, I think all the information is good in a sense, but also too, I feel like it like waters it down, because all of it can't be true. And it's hard to figure out what's real and what's not. Even even with like these fact checkers, because there's things that I know are real and fact checkers are saying that they're not real. And it's just like how it's just hard to get to the bottom of things and know what's real and what's not these days.
I think the funny thing is that you can hear something and it's so ridiculous where you're like, that can't be true. And then it is true. But then people are like,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't matter. It's like I had sent somebody an article about the Reuters about the vaccine for Johnson or not Johnson and Johnson. I think it's Pulsar, I think it's called. I don't know the names. They use some very weird language for it. One of the other vaccines that's not Johnson and Johnson had fetal cells in it that were from the 1980s. And then someone was like, well, that's ridiculous. That sounds insane. And I'm like, you know why they use cells from the 1980s? Because the older it is, the less you give a shit about it.
Dude, that's for real. And my first thought when I think of like false information is in the Spanish flu, one of the biggest killers of people was wearing masks because they were all getting bacterial pneumonia. And Dr. Fauci actually did research on this in 2008. But funny enough, it's been completely scrubbed from the internet, and fact checkers now say that that's false. And so many people really rely on those fact checkers. I'm not saying that they're always right or that they're always wrong, but when people are putting so much faith into those, it's just scary, you know. I feel like that's how you easily brainwash people. And then I also I can't figure out the quote exactly, but there was some study done, and if you feed people fear, I don't know if it was like 2 weeks or 2 months, after so long, like no amount of information showing otherwise will they I wish I was saying it right. But after you've pumped people full of fear, I think it was like 2 months, maybe it was 2 weeks, I don't remember. But after you've put that fear in them, no amount of information showing otherwise can change their mind. And I feel like that's really going on today, because you can tell people all these statistics, like people ramming the vaccine down people's throat. And me personally, I think it should be a personal choice. I have nothing against people who get it, nothing against people who don't. But the fact is, it's not FDA approved. The clinical trials are still ongoing, and Moderna's information clearly says that the risk benefits are unknown. So I just don't think people should be getting upset and calling other people like, oh, you're a grandma killer if you don't get it, or just like the passport vaccine. All that's really scary because people are just trusting because the news says it's safe. I even heard what's her name, Jen, I the speaker for the White House. I saw a clip of her saying it's FDA approved, and it's not. And people just hear one thing and, oh, it's truth. You know what I mean? That's scary. That's scary.
I think first of all, nice shirt, by the way. Um,
Thank you.
Second, I want to talk about the fact that, like, I understand, like, everyone hates hearing the vaccine talk and the political talk, but they're not given any room for like conspiracy people to be wrong. You know what I mean? Like the fact that, like, the beginning was, oh, Bill Gates is microchipping people inside of a vaccine. Now they're forcing you to get the vaccine, and you're like, hang on a second, why do I? If I don't feel comfortable taking it just yet, why are you forcing people that they can't fly, they can't travel, they can't do all these
Right.
things? It's not leaving any room for you saying that they're not chipping you. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
kind of like, and then people are experiencing. I don't even want to keep going into the vaccine thing. That's going to take me down this long freaking rabbit hole. And people are like, I'm already exhausted. Can we just get to the point where ice cream sandwich trucks, the ice cream man starts coming back? Because I noticed he was gone during the pandemic and he's still gone. And I'm like, hey, man, like, you gotta take some risks, dude. Somebody needs like
Right.
a rocket pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm ready for things to just go back to normal, man. I feel like some of the facts are is that you have a really high chance of recovering. And I mean, I just think any virus is going to affect the elderly and the immune compromised more. And let me put out there, because one thing people like to always say is, oh, you'll understand when you lose someone. I'm in New York State. I lost my grandmother last April. She died of sudden chest issues. She died completely alone. They never tested her, although there was a bunch of COVID patients there. So I have lost someone. I just think that if it wasn't that, it would have been the flu. You know what I mean? I feel like it's basically the new flu. Like no more people died in 2020 than any other year. And I just, now that we know more about it, I think that it's just time to get on with regular life. We can't live in fear. It's like what you said with the goal markers. It's time to get back to regular life. We can't live in fear forever. What life is that, you know? What life is that?
It's funny because an article just came out like a couple days ago talking about how there are 230,000 people still suffering from neurological side effects from getting COVID. And I heard about that months ago from a podcast with Dr. Mark Gordon. I think I sent you, which was talking about you need to narrow down your nutrition. You need to be looking at certain things. Like the reason why India's numbers are so low. India's numbers are so low because of their diet, lots of green tea and a lot of a
Yep.
certain supplement that's involved in green
Yep.
tea and some of the like the soups that they have down there that are known to that region, but it boosts their immune system in certain ways. I think this is a giant push to look at your nutrition, in fact, in general. I mean, what are you eating? What are you putting in your body? What's right? What's
Yes.
wrong? I mean, for so long, and you want to talk about programming. The easiest example I could honestly give you, besides one we started with, is the fact of the sugar industry lying to everyone and telling them that fat is bad when fat isn't bad. They
Yeah.
programmed a bunch of people in the 1980s to think that fat was the leading cause of what was going to get you fat. Fat means fat. They paid off doctors, they paid off scientists to fake research studies to make sure that they weren't the ones that were under the microscope, that we were going a whole different way. And then we find out later in 2005 or something like that, that it's actually sugar that's bad for you, not fat. But you've already programmed so many people to believe so. It's like
Yeah.
very, very hard when you're looking at people that are trying to build up the progress to the future. And it seems like they're really just separating us and making us more divided as it stands. I mean, I think I just literally read this, I think this morning, which was about Biden's ban on gun control, where it was a lot of people are freaking out about, because now you can't even own attachments to be able to assemble your own gun. Like anything of
Yeah.
those that you have in your house are going to be banned, which is like they call it ghost guns or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, man. I honestly, at this point, I'm just like, I'm ready to watch it fall down a little bit.
Yeah. Going back to what you said, I feel like really diet and taking good care of yourself. I mean, I feel like that's where being healthy really lies. Like I am, don't get me wrong, I still believe in Western medicine. I mean, Western medicine has been useful in my life, but I also think that holistic doctors and just having a good diet, I think it's underrated. And I don't know, I just feel like there's so many people who die of like obesity and heart disease and things that could be avoided with proper diet and nutrition. And a long time ago, and I want to say it was around the time that marijuana was prohibited. And if you really look into that, that was all politics, that was all money. They had a machine where they could make hemp and stuff. You could literally make anything out of marijuana. And once they had this machine to do it so fast, all of a sudden they banned it because petrochemicals were coming out. And that's when big pharma came along. So they they made all those I forget what the name of the movies were, but they made all the Reefer Madness. They made those movies saying, the black men rape white women when they're on marijuana. And they did the same thing to like holistic doctors, really gave them a bad name. And I guess they canceled them or whatever. But talking with my health coach, she has, I believe it's rheumatoid
Arthritis.
arthritis. Yep. And she treats it 100% holistically. She doesn't take any medicine for it. So my husband also has autoimmune. He does take medicine, but I feel like through my husband and through her, I really got on the healthy bandwagon. And diet and all that, it really does a lot. And I feel like if people are really concerned with getting sick, this and that they should really take a closer look at their lifestyle and what they're eating and stuff.
I think the power of fear, the power of the human mind is something that needs to be understood a little bit more. Why is
Oh
it the
yeah.
fact that so many people think so completely different? We're all able to live. I mean, the fact that there aren't more people that are attacking each other every single day, even though it decides whatever the media wants to show you. Um,
Yeah.
the fact that it's not happening more and more and more is kind of like, I mean, it is happening more and more, but the fact that there's not like outrageous numbers every single day, like that, the fact that
Yeah.
you don't walk out into the middle of your street and get shot in the head. I guess depending on where you're from, it's just the fact
Right.
of like people are just so ramped up with like all these emotions and feelings and things. And I kind of came to the conclusion of talking with a psychedelic researcher, that would talk about how it relates to religion. And then also people in Canada that they use psychedelic medicine, they're advocates of it because using mushrooms or something like that can help a person discover themselves and be able to sort through
Yeah.
all this. I kind of consider like your brain throughout life is just constantly being like dirt's being shoved on top of it. And then like you have to find a way to like sift off some of the dirt and pull your brain back out of it, because you get down these rabbit holes. And a lot of times nowadays, there's a difference between thoughts and then there's a difference between emotion. People are not thinking, they're thinking with passion, they're thinking with the initial response that they feel when they hear something, rather than looking at it and trying to understand it. And that's kind of a little bit difficult, because I'm an empathic person, when it comes to caring
Me
about
too.
people. But
Hmm.
it's very, very hard for me not, I mean, I guess my biggest, and you even said it, you were like, how do I talk to some people? And I was like, my biggest ability in my life is to be able to understand people, but also my biggest downfall is the fact that when someone tells me to do something and like with authority, like you could tell me right now, what's something you, what's your favorite food?
Ah, I have a lot of favorite food. I'm really into pineapple right now, so let's go with pineapple.
Can you pick another one that I don't immediately love? Like I love that food so much.
Um,
I actually ate
Pizza?
two for Easter, like I think like a year back, and I corroded the whole side of my mouth, looked like I was burned, like from like my
Oh my
whole,
God.
yeah, because apparently there's, so here's something. If you eat too many pineapple in one sitting or in one day, it raises the acid levels in your blood, which causes corrosion of your skin. And I did not know that. And that's because there's a
Oh
certain thing, I
wow.
think it's called brosine or something that's inside of a pineapple, and that raises, yeah, I didn't know that.
I bet, dude, that's been like my biggest pregnancy craving. I've been buying like two every week. I just friggin' love pineapple. It's so good. But I can
That's
go
not
with
weird
pizza.
compared to like, did you say pizza?
I love pizza. You asked my favorite food, right?
Damn, I love that one too. All right,
It's hard to pick
I hate pizza, okay? I hate
one. Okay.
pizza so much. And then you
Okay.
tell me, "Well, you should eat pizza." It doesn't matter. It's like, "Hey, you should try pizza." Even if you're a fan of pizza, in my head immediately my mind goes, I don't want pizza. I don't know. Why are you telling me what to do?" That's my
Yeah.
biggest downfall, but I don't force that onto other people. See, the issue is that
Yeah.
in the world we're not thinking on the same level. Everybody has their own perspectives and thoughts. But here's the thing is when someone says something, whether it's through social media or whether it's this, they take it in a different way. They
Yeah.
internalize it as somebody forcing them to change. And a lot of people
Yes.
really don't like change. And this is what I'm like trying to tell people to focus on. If you don't want to know what's going on and you can't believe what's going on in the media right now, because you will fall down rabbit holes, especially with today's stuff, just look at the past. The past isn't that different. I mean, not too long ago, we were all worried about Bohemian Grove. And that to me is like, it makes sense. But at the same time, like it's horrible that they're doing things like that.
Yeah, especially through the internet or even through text. Like even just today, I had like a little argument with my dad, and we didn't clear it up until we got on the phone because through text, like you can't tell someone's tone or if they meant it in a joking way. And I feel like people aren't looking to understand one another. And when I feel like someone responds with like hate or being nasty, then I feel like it doesn't really open the door for conversation to understand opposing viewpoints because you just get defensive. You know what I mean? So I don't
Wait,
know.
why would you want to understand somebody? Why? It's so much more fun to like hear something, take offense to it, and just burn everything they love down to the ground.
Right? That's the problem. That's the problem. Dude, it's scary. I feel like I don't know if you go on TikTok a lot, but people are like if there's someone who they don't agree with, they are like calling their employers and like getting them. I don't know if some get fired, some get in trouble, and I'm just like, "Oh my God. Imagine having that much hate inside you or no, or letting someone else bother you that much that you're going to go and like destroy their life." I just feel like it's crossing a line and things are just getting out of control because I feel like people don't care to understand each other these days. And I always try to be respectful, and I would never like mock someone for their beliefs. I understand. I try to be understanding, but I just feel like when there's hate involved, it makes you not want to understand. It just makes you react.
I think the door opens up when you start having conversations with people. You start realizing that not everyone thinks the same exact way you do. Maybe after like 10, 15, 20 people you talk to, like for an extended period of time, you start to realize, like, oh shit, like there's other people with different feelings and emotions out there that, aren't like the ones I've talked to in the past. And it's hard because I only feel like powered by a certain opinion or a certain perspective on very few topics. One is like lockdowns, two is like should kids get free lunches in school? Those are just two topics where I'm like, you're if you don't agree with me, then I we can talk about it, but I just there's no fucking way you're swaying me. And that's just because like I've been in those situations, you know, I've seen the pain from it. I have understand and experienced that. And it's very, very hard because now what everyone is experiencing is a somewhat thing of fear, but more like pain. You know, a lot of this is like they're longing for something. You know, people when you see them on social media, I just saw, I think it was some rapper who's 15 years old, fucking nuts to me. He got shot like 5 times. And his dad put up a video on Instagram, was like, "Hey, he's just recovering." The kid's on his cell phone, like, "Say hi to your fans." He's like, "I don't want to." And it's just like you start to realize like everyone's grasping for that fame, everyone's grasping for that attention. And I think that's because everything that we see when it comes to the matter of success in people's minds doesn't mean happiness. It means wealth, it means popularity, it means yada yada yada. It's just this it's why I like talking to academics, I think, so much, not only learning
Yeah.
something, but when I talk to one of them, there's just this very, very strong, like, I care about what I'm researching. I don't get paid shit. Like, they're getting paid 30,000, 40,000 a year to do this hardcore research, digging through dirt and, you know, trying to study things like that, like finding old pop cans instead of dinosaur bones. And I'm like, oh, because you actually give a shit about what you're doing. It's like so many people are just doing something because they think that's going to get them rich.
Yeah, I mean, some of your favorite episodes are the ones with those type of people. I just find it so fascinating, you know, because you just like learn things. And I agree. I feel like I don't know, like social media. I feel like has been good in a way, but I feel like it's also bad because I feel like people are focusing on the wrong things in life. And not only that, but I just feel like self-esteem, things like this and that. And don't get me wrong, because I'm big into social media, but I took a break there for a while, and you learn what's like really important in life, you know? Like my number of followers really means jack shit. Like I'm no better or no worse of a person because of my follower count or what I do on the internet, you know? I feel like the most important thing to me is always going to be my family, my dogs, my husband, you know, memories made, stuff like that. And another thing that I've learned in my 33 years is that you have to be happy now with where you are now. If you're always like saying, "Oh, I'll be happy when I find a man or a woman or when I get married or I'll be happy when I get a car. I'll be happy when I get that house and I get this job." Yeah, it might bring you happiness temporarily, but then it's going to be on to something else. And I feel like the real way to win in life is to be happy now with what you have. I mean, I'm not saying that it's bad to work towards those goals, but have happiness now. Be grateful for what you have now, and all that will come, trust me.
I think I'm definitely a I guess, proponent of, if you will, something into the universe, such as like if you think positively or you think all these types of things and you try your, I guess
Yes.
it really starts with when you start thinking positively, you start trying to eliminate negative things around you and you start kind of analyzing everything in a little different of a way, which I think is the first step to kind of trying to figure out who you are and trying to discover what happiness is. Cause I think a large portion of the world probably isn't happy. I mean, I'm at fault for probably being one of those people that just isn't happy. And I think that's just the concept of, it's very, very difficult because I think people think of the, you know, it's a long haul, but people look in the short term thing of what they have now and start to realize that they don't have anything that someone their age might have. You know, I know some person I went to high school with just won a Grammy for something. I'm just like, fuck, what am I doing? You know, I'm just like sitting there
No.
like, it's like when you see people that are like, I went to high school with that guy, and they're pointing at the TV and it's a person on NFL. You're like, fuck, man, how upset are you that that dude's life turned out that way, making billions of dollars and sleeping on like, you know, giant fluffy Tempur-Pedics, and you're sitting there sleeping on a couch sometimes because your wife kicks you out. And it's like, you really start looking at all these things and you realize that the first step in life is trying to find happiness, and that should probably be your only step because everything that comes with it is kind of a little bit of a bonus. I mean, If you convinced everybody right now and the world came out with this new article saying that heaven is real, so is hell, and every good deed you do adds a $1 moral currency to your life, people would start being nice, but it
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
be real. You mentioned your follower count, for instance. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been used? It doesn't have to be personal, but have you ever been used by someone to get something?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. I saw a podcast. These past guests reach actually out to me, always saying, "Hey man, how you doing?" After months of not talking to me, like just like we
Yep.
just never talked, never said hello, how's your day, happy Hanukkah, whatever the hell, none of that. But they just messaged me, and it's about getting someone I might have talked to. You know, if I had a connection or something. And it's even when you talk to someone who has an explicitly high follower count, you probably get messages all the time. Those people are using you to get what they think, oh, this person has fame. I get their fans. I was listening to a podcast and a stand-up comedian was a past guest of mine was talking about how like, well, yeah, I'll get some of the big names to get onto my podcast, maybe boost my following content up. And I'm like, shouldn't you just want like good content? Like I've had some fucking famous people on, and I'm telling you, they were stinkers in my eyes. They weren't fun. It felt like the hour dragged on for, like watching paint dry. But I have amazing people like yourself that, yeah, might have a follower content to it too, but it's more about the conversation and the connection I get out of it. I like having a
Yeah.
conversation where we've already been talking for almost 40 minutes, and it goes by like that because
Yeah.
it's simple. It's actually in the moment. You're actually enjoying or you're vibing on whatever this feeling is that's happening. And this can happen in your everyday life. And I think people probably hear that all the time and they're like, oh, he's beating the dead horse again. Well, you can't say that. PETA changed it. You beating a
Oh
fed
my god.
horse.
Oh
Um,
my god.
but it's what PETA was trending on Twitter. And I was like, oh my God, PETA's is it because everyone saw that they banned all these? Did you know about that? They banned animal slurs. I've mentioned it in the past.
No.
It's you can't say kill two birds with one stone. It's feed two birds with one scone because they're like
Oh my god.
so it's okay.
We're
We'll
not
be
really killing birds and horses,
I know.
it's just a saying. Holy
It's not
crap.
it's not beat a dead horse, it's feed a fed horse. You have to say that. But I
Okay.
saw them trending on Twitter and I checked it and it was PETA from Hunger Games. Fucking PETA, that fucking baker dude. And I was like, fuck, they got me. They got me good.
Oh my god. It really is. It's what's the saying? Quality over quantity. And I feel like that's with everything. And I feel like the older you get, like the more you learn that. Like my best example would be like, yeah, it may sound great to have a bunch of friends, but me personally, I really don't have that many friends. I maybe have like one or two, really good long time friends. And I would rather, have two really close friends I can count on and trust than a bunch of people who don't really have my back, maybe use me, whatever it may be. It's definitely quality over quantity. And
Here's a good
I don't know.
social experiment. How many people
Yeah,
listening right now, including yourself, Sarah, that can be able to take their phone and be able to pick all their contacts that they have and be able to say that every single one of these people would pick me up at 2 o'clock in the morning if I was drunk and needed a ride home? How many contacts do you have in your phone, people that you know that will be able to do that with you or be able to, wish you a happy birthday or wish you a Merry Christmas? That's not on fucking Facebook when it reminds people that it is your birthday.
dude, honestly, getting married and now having a baby really taught me who's there for me and who's not. Like, uh, yeah, so I got married last August. We had a small little wedding here at the house because our original plans got canceled because of COVID. And I got rid of a lot of people in my life last year, family included. For example, I had a cousin and I went to his wife's bridal shower, I went to their wedding, I went to her baby shower, and they couldn't even bother to respond to my invite. Couldn't even get a text, hey, congratulations. Like if they had let me know, like, hey, we're not gonna come because of COVID, fine. I'd understand. But to just get ignored, nothing. I mean, that really showed, and then I had an uncle who couldn't even bother getting the day off work. When I don't do things for people to hold it against them later or remind them, but I have been there for that man and done a lot. And I cut a lot of dead weight out of my life last year. And I tell you, I don't regret it. And I asked myself a lot why I didn't do it a lot sooner, why I cared for so long if I upset these people, because they don't care if they let me down, if they make me sad, so
You know why you cared so much? Because
because I'm
there,
a caring person.
yeah, that too. But there's a memory, one little conversation, one little thing that makes you want to. Well, I might, it's the reason why you have that phone number. You have one good conversation with someone, you get their phone number, and you go, well, I might not text them tomorrow, might not text them today, I might not text them for, but maybe one day I need to move, and they have a truck. It's like there's these things that you hold on to where it's like, okay, you took that karate class one time 6 years ago. Do you still need the dojo's number into your phone? You have this one specific little part of your brain, this one little flicker in one of your nerves that lets you know that this memory is connected to this person. And you don't ever want to cut off that tie because what if this, what if that? Life is kind of full of what ifs, and you can't really cut those things out, but you can learn how to reduce them and figure out what is a prioritized example of things that you should be keeping into your life. When you analyze your friend circle, I've had this happen multiple times to me just through doing the podcast. A past guest will message or reach out and be like, or unfollow me, and I'm like, okay, I'll notice it, and I'll be like, I'll just message them. I'm like, happy birthday. They're like, what? You want to do another podcast? I'm like, I can't keep connected with all 700 or whatever of everybody. I'm sorry if you message me, I'll respond, but geez, it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, you start to look at your life a little bit, and you want to talk about minimalizing things into your life. Instead of looking at maybe reducing your house size or reducing objects you don't use anymore, try and look at the things and develop the relationships that you have around you, which ones are necessarily the people that you can count on, and which are just people that really don't care how you're doing. And here's the weirdest thing that hit me the other day was I was in a store and I saw a buddy of mine, like maybe I went to school with, 5, 6 years ago. And I said, hey, man, how's it going? He goes, it's going good, man. And he goes back to stocking sodas on the shelves. And I'm like, all right, man. Like, you got any plans later or something? And he's just like, looks at me, goes, what? He goes, I didn't honestly think you really wanted to talk. I thought you were just, oh, it's awkward. Hey, haven't seen you since school. And then you say something and you walk away. And I was like, no, I'm actually like genuinely giving a shit. Like, you got any plans later? Are you okay? How you doing, man? It's been rough the past like year. And he's just like,
Right.
wow. And then we started getting into like a 15, 20 minute conversation, and it really highlights, you don't have to do that with everybody, but don't be pushed away and so consumed by your own ego when your ego was built up by a foundation of lies. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with our government. People want honesty, but then they don't like the honesty.
Mhm.
I'm 100%. They develop vaccines using old fetal cells. I don't give a shit. Don't hide it. Let people
Yeah.
fucking know.
Yeah.
Don't deny it. They denied, I think, the Hunter Biden laptop thing or tried to hide it for so long. And then the
Oh yeah.
FBI was like, fuck it. Open. Yeah, it's 100% true. We're going to study it. Bohemian Grove videos came out after they lied for so long, telling people all this stuff came out. And then people are like, you hurt more people when you lie
Yes.
to them rather than telling them the truth. It's like when you get in
Yes.
trouble, you keep hiding it and making excuses until finally the truth comes out, and then you're even in more fucking trouble.
Oh yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense. I feel like if you tell someone like a little lie to spare their feelings, I feel like when they find out, their feelings are going to be way more hurt than if you had just been honest in the beginning. And when you were talking about your friend there, I was thinking, oh, yeah, I feel like you really got to pay attention to what you're giving energy in your life. And I feel like if you give negative things or people who are negative energy, that's what you're going to get back. And I know some people may not be into that and think it's like hocus pocus, but I am a big believer in that. I feel like what you put your energy into, what you focus on, is what you're going to get back out of life. And then what you were saying about the government. Yeah, man. I feel like there was like a poll done, and I guess I forget the number, but a lot of people said that if they had known about Hunter Biden and his laptop before the election, that they wouldn't have voted for Biden. And I mean, they do all that for a reason, but nothing honestly surprises me anymore with the friggin' government. Okay.
I think it's kind of crazy because I use this example of like the Declaration of Independence. Do you know how old the people that were making the Declaration of Independence were when they were making the Declaration of Independence?
I am gonna guess late 20s, early 30s.
Around late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. Most of them were, except one character, one person that didn't want to be involved in power at all. And you know who that was?
No.
Benjamin Franklin.
Really?
Man was in his late 50s or late 60s.
Okay. I
So
learned
he
something
was
new today.
I was like, okay, like that's a puppet master right there. He's telling people like, I want this to go this way. I want this to go this way. He was one of the members of the Freemason who started it in America as well too. But when you really analyze things, people that are bad don't announce that they're bad. They don't let you know all their dirty. Why would someone who's evil or have problems wrong with them try and announce that they're fucking evil? It wouldn't make sense. But people that admit to the things that they have done, they're not bad people. They might have made mistakes, but that's not the logical thinking of someone that's evil. I think we all know one person that used to set shit up and lie and do a bunch of horrible things just because they
Oh
liked
yeah.
watching conflict and stirring up arguments and animosity between people that should have never been there. They don't go around telling people they do that, or they don't go around saying, I'm fucking gonna twist you against your own friend, like stabbing a knife into your back. No one does that. So if we
Oh
look
yeah.
at politicians, for instance, when someone has a thing come out about them and they start lying about it, you should look at that person like instead of it being misinformation, being like that person's not being honest. You
Right.
should We should be in a system, a world where instead of when something like that comes out, instead of trying to hide it and pay people off and make the thing say it's a lie, we should look at that as information, and we should be looking for that person to tell us the truth. Say, yes, I did those things and I'm sorry about that. Marion Barrion is the only best example I can describe. The mayor of Detroit that was caught smoking crack.
Okay. Okay. Did he
He
come
was
out and admit?
No, he didn't. But listen,
Oh,
he was smoking crack and they asked him on an interview. They go, "What they caught you smoking crack." And he goes, "Nobody knows what was in that pipe."
oh
It's
my God.
putting into your head. He's not admitting it, but he's also
Yeah.
saying that no one knows what was in that pipe. That is,
That's worse. Yeah.
for the love of God, it's so much. If you're doing something wrong, is it wrong, or have you built it up in your head to make it think that this wrong? If you would have asked me maybe 400 episodes ago, if I would have think brothels are horrible institutions, I would have told you, yeah, it's fucking using people for sex. And then I talked to a brothel keeper. No, it's not. It's fucking some people want to do that for a living. But the idea of the way that's been sublimated or messaged into your mind or programmed is the fact that
Yeah.
anybody who's a sex person has been involved in that since they were a young child because they were forced into that. That's not necessarily true. A lot of them are being involved in the industry because they like having sex. They like getting paid for their looks. They like these types of things. It's very, very, very easy to label someone rather than trying to understand the full scope of this situation and be able to sort out the truth of something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And to me, like going back to that mayor example, like I would have found it so much more respectful if he, if he was like, yes, I was smoking crack, I have a problem, this is what I'm doing to fix it, whatever. But when you leave it like that, I don't know. I can't really respect the guy because we're all pretty sure it was crack. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna go back to when I got arrested. Um, Back in 2010. If this is your first episode listening with me, I was arrested for burglary. I had a heroin problem. I served 4 years out of 5 in prison, and I have over 10 years sober now from heroin. But when I was arrested, I feel like the newspaper articles weren't really, I mean, it was true, but a lot of things were embellished, and some of the details were not true, and just some of the comments online, I just feel like people just automatically judged me, and thought I was just like such a bag of shit, and that my parents were horrible, this and that. And I mean, what I did was shitty, but I don't think I'm a piece of shit, you know what I mean? I just feel like people are just so quick to run with that, when I feel like you don't know the whole story. I feel like there's always more to people, or more to things, you know what I mean? People just hear like one little tidbit, or they have this idea because maybe that's what their grandpa or their uncle has told them about whatever subject, and they just always believe that is truth. And I feel like there's always more to the story.
So I use this in a an episode that's, yeah, it's out. So when I describe the South, what stereotype that goes into your head when I say South?
Immediately I think of like cowboys and the accent. I think of Texas, I
What's
guess.
the IQ level of the South when I say South?
Like hillbillies. Well, I know that there's educated
I know, but
people in the
the
South, but
stereotype is.
immediately you'd think like dumb redneck. You know
So
what I mean?
you know how that got started?
No, but I'd be interested in learning.
So when people were discovering the South, were starting to immigrate, like the original colonies, when they were starting to spread farther and farther, they went over to the South and noticed that these people were fatigued. These people were very, very slow in speaking. These people looked drowsy. They looked tired. They looked like they're about to take a nap as they were in the middle of driving their car or something. And that was because the whole entire area back then in the South was being ravaged by a tapeworm. And this tapeworm caused fatigue, slurred speech, and all this. And the stereotype got started that the South is slow, and that's just spread and become the norm. So the episode I was mentioning when I brought this up was I did a podcast with a guy who owns the Florida podcast. Now, just thinking when I saw the title of this podcast, I was like, it's about all the crazy shit that happens in Florida. Yes. Then seeing this guy's tweets before he came on my show, and we had a very, very intelligent, serious conversation. He was tweeting poems of Socrates and poems of old school ancient literature, and I was like, where did this come from? And he goes, no, I do a lot of research. He goes, I'm actually pretty educated. And he's like, the only reason that people think Florida is this way, because everything you can search up about Florida is all these horrible acts, when they have a free information record. Any of their information of any crime that ever happens in Florida is open to the public's knowledge. That's part and
Okay.
parcel of why people see all this horrible and crazy things that happen in Florida, because they have free information for anybody in their town to be able to figure it out, anybody in their state to be able to figure out. When a lot of states, much like ourselves, my state, for instance, my ex-girlfriend's dad was arrested for embezzling money in our town. Like,
Oh
they
my God.
moved to Florida. Like, that's private, or that's private information down here. You can't find that. You can find an article about money maybe laundering, but it doesn't mention the name. But if you look in Florida, they'll give you the name, they'll give you all the details. And this is
Oh wow.
that's why I'm starting to like I mean, my grandma was from Florida. I like Florida, but you're honest about your shit. They're not hiding anything from you. So people don't react to it in the same way. When you hide something and someone finds it out, they react a little bit more harshly, because now you're blending something that might not even be that big of a deal. You might like feet. If you hide it and people find out about it, they're going to mercifully beat the shit out of you with it. They're going to say, you like feet, you like feet. I bet you like these nines or these tens. They're going to hit you with it when you could have just been like, I like feet. And then they're like, okay, that's cool, man. Do your thing.
Dude, that makes so much sense. And it makes me think that when I first got with my husband, uh my crime or whatever, it, it was public information. I was all over the news, the newspaper. If you type in my maiden name, it's the first thing that comes up, my mugshot. So when I first got with him, I was real nervous about his family and his friends. What are they gonna think? So instead of letting them find out on their own, that was the first time I ever shared on social media everything I had been through, and what I was doing now and how I was changing my life. Because the same thing that you just said, I thought that it would be better, if they heard it from me and how I see it and my experience, rather than they read that newspaper article that was embellished, or they talk to someone who went to high school with me who thinks I might be a piece of shit. You know what I mean? So that makes a lot of sense. And it turned out that they actually had a lot of respect. I thought maybe, no, they may not like me. They think I'm a piece of crap, whatever. But his family loves me. They think that's great. And
It
it
kind of
turned
goes
out
back
that,
to our last recording that I was like, we need to do another one. But we talked about what would you consider priceless and what would you consider worthless. I think a lot of people look at a homeless man and their first initial instinct is they're worthless, rather than
yeah,
looking at like maybe they're priceless. If you look at the fact of if I eat an ice cream sandwich, one of those, well, the one I'm talking about, the one with the black outside and the white ice cream in the middle, the actual ice cream sandwich.
yeah.
Okay. That's a good fuck a rocket pop. I don't know why I use that example. It's the only name I could think of. Or
Oh
the
my God.
SpongeBob one that never looks like that's a perfect representation of people. They never look like the packaging that they're showing. You open up that sucker, the eyes are all fucked up and there's paint and he looks like he's wearing lipstick that's drooled halfway down his face, the ice cream sandwich or the SpongeBob thing. I don't know if you've ever seen that
That's
before.
so funny. There's a TikTok account that I just came across today, and every single day he is opening up a SpongeBob ice cream until he gets one that looks just like the SpongeBob on the front, because they all look nothing like SpongeBob. They either have like long fangs or his eyeballs are googled. Oh my God, I got a kick out of it.
What's
That's funny.
does he eat the sandwich when he's done with it?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd have to
It's a
look.
lot. The daily SpongeBob ice cream sandwich? Good
Yeah,
God.
that's funny that I came across that today and you said that.
Huh. But it kind of goes down to what I was talking about. Remember when I had Brett on here? And
Yes.
it's funny because I listened to your guys' episode and then he was like, I wish I could ramble off as much as Robbie can. And I was just like, no. But it was when I was talking to him and we were talking, especially like when you were on your first time, we were talking about welding for 30 something minutes. And then you just dropped
Hmm.
the bombshell on me and how you got started in it. And I never would have known that. But I didn't think differently of you from that. I continued
Yeah.
talking to you the exact same way. And I think a lot of people, when they hear something or they see something, they label somebody and they don't look at what that information is and they don't look at this is just a person. It can happen to anybody, much like yourself. Probably before you experienced going to jail and everything, you probably thought those people are probably criminals and all this, and then you realize, oh shit, it can easily happen to me too. it's
Yep.
it's a it's a very very big thing that people run with the first idea that gets put into their head. And when I look at a homeless person, I don't consider them worthless, I consider them priceless, because the fact that if me and him enjoy an ice cream sandwich, I take a bite into it, I might fucking love it or I might hate it. He might love it or he might hate it. That's information. Why do you hate this? Well, back in the day when, I never liked this food and that was because of this and this and that.
Yeah.
There's information there. That's priceless. That is
Yeah.
something different and a different perspective that you should value over what a person's wearing, if they're wearing Gucci, Versace. And there is an issue. People talk about LA and their homeless problem, and a lot of people why they're not fixing it, for instance. A lot of those people are choosing to be homeless because they realize being in a fucking house is a lot more difficult than just being able to buy your own tent and be able to live outside, kind of. It's a little bit of minimalism, I would say, but it does have its ends where it's like that's a little too far, but that's their perspective of things too. Like, I mean, I've seen they arrested a guy that was homeless that pitched a tent. He snuck over to the electrical, like one of those little like poles outside of somebody's house, and he hooked into it with wires and hooked up cable into his fucking tent.
Oh my God, how funny.
That man's a fucking genius. I could never do that. You can give me 50 years and a book on how to, and I would never do that.
Yeah, that's funny. I feel everyone has a story, you know what I mean? I feel like just because someone's homeless, I mean, my dad's technically homeless, and I feel like if you were to talk to him, you'd never know. He used to be a truck driver, and I just feel like everyone has a story, and other people's stories are fascinating, you know? I feel like we can learn so much from people. And I feel like that is. I feel people just hear one thing and then, you know, draw conclusions, and it may necessarily not be the truth.
I think you can choose who your sculptor is. I think everyone's kind of like a mold statue that's kind of being uncovered bit by bit until like the end of their life, until this design, like God gets there and he's like, "That's your sculpture, man. It's a fucking looks horrible. It's missing an arm." And you're like,
Yeah.
"Well, I don't know. Everything I saw was off the news, and I kind of just lived my life based on what I was reading." And it's like, well, would you rather want to be sculpted or formed by the information that you see through maybe a site that's sided a certain way, or would you prefer to understand the perspectives of multiple people? So you're getting not just one take, but different takes of each side. So you're understanding, be able to form a valid opinion. I mean, that what's that old quote is you might know me, but you don't know my story or something like that. And then there's you could try walking a mile in my shoes. Well, if you start
Yeah.
looking at people and start trying to place yourself in that situation, you start understanding that it could just as easily happen to you, even though in a million years you might never thought that it would.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I feel like, I mean, I feel like I keep going back to like prison, but I feel like a really good example is the officers. Some of the COs would, you know, say to us like that this could easily be me. I could have easily been one of the inmates, like especially with like drunk driving. People people do it and think, "Oh, you know, that will never be me. I'll never have an accident or whatever." And no one gets behind the wheel of a car drunk, and you know, well, I mean, maybe in some case, but most people, they don't intentionally get behind the wheel of a car and think, "Oh, I'm going to kill all my friends in the car, or I'm going to go take out a family." You know what I mean? And a lot of officers I heard say, especially with the drunk driving, is, you know, the only difference between you and me is I never got caught. And I feel like that's a really good example of that, because it a lot of things really can happen to anyone, and people just, they just don't realize it. There's so much that could happen that, you know, that you'd never even think of.
Think about what happened with Tiger Woods, where he got into that car accident.
That's I was just talking to my husband about that because he's a big golf fan, and I
First
just,
thing people
that's
thought was that
crazy.
he was drinking and driving because it happened at
Yep,
night. You know what? They
yep,
found no alcohol in his car, no pills, nothing that was in there in his car. He accidentally sped up when he
yep.
started
Around a
going off
corner.
course, and that's because his foot mistake the gas for the brake because he was in such a freak motion. People want to think that, the most famous people, the most beloved people, they want to think that there's evil to them. And here's a perfect example. So I don't know how you know how I feel about Mr. Rogers. Um, I don't know if you've heard it.
I heard you mention him in one other episode, but I can't remember. Once you say it, I'm sure it will come to my
I
mind. But
think he's hiding something. I think he's like probably like, I don't know, into some really nasty shit. So I had to YouTube it. I had to. I've been saying it for 400 something episodes that there's something wrong with Mr. Rogers. Nobody can be that like pure hearted. And I looked up what's the evil truth behind Mr. Rogers. The only video I found, the top result was something that Fox talked about with Fox and Friends or whatever the show was, that Mr. Rogers was evil. It was a quick 1 little minute snippet. Then I saw a 15-minute video as the second result, and I was like, oh, it's coming out. There's some shit about Mr. Rogers. I've been right because I've called Bill Cosby, I called Crystalia, I called Kevin Spacey, I called so much shit. I called I got it. But I fucking watched that video and everything was like a woman was dying from some type of brain disease, and he sat by her bedside and spoke prayer with her. And I was like, you're really making it hard for me to stick with this fucking you're a horrible person type thing. And it's also a factor of you when some I don't think people should be 100% like Mr. Rogers style, and I don't think people should be 100% like, trying to say that all that's a lie or all that's a thing and trying to be this good-hearted person. I think people should try and be themselves, because if you're anything but yourself, you're really you're going to end up hurting people in the long run when people find out who you really are. It's the same thing with relationships, for instance. When you're in that first 6 months or 7 months when you're with somebody, you're not yourself. You're like a better
Yeah.
version of yourself. You clean up your dishes, you act a little bit nicer, you try and
Yep.
accommodate. Then after 2 years or 3 years in a relationship, you're like fucking shit with the door open. I don't give a shit. Like it's a whole different experience.
It's so true. But wait, so is Mr. Rogers good or bad? Did we ever find anything solid that
They're
he's
telling
bad
me
or?
he's good, but I'm telling you he's a bad man. He's got
God,
something
that,
like I think he likes gimp stuff. Like I think he wears masks and chains and stuff because it's the same thing with priests. If anybody's like that, like oh God and all this, like I just look at him like, okay, man, what's you hiding, dude? Like I watched a
yeah,
video. It was a debate type thing. It was a porn star and a priest, and they were figuring out, like they were asked questions, and on the table they would have agree or disagree and strongly disagree. And everything the priest was saying was like strongly disagree against sex being illegal, strongly this, strongly this, strongly this. And then there were some like questions into it where it was like, what about using like, having multiple sums, if you could think of that possible scenario. And then the priest was like, agree. And it was like, you have that inside of you. You have that suppression. It's a factor of suppression. You see it with everything going on
yeah.
now. People are being suppressed and now they're breaking out. It only lasts for so long. You can make somebody scared until they start to be like, I don't give a fuck anymore.
Oh yeah, yeah. I feel eventually. I feel like your true colors have to come out. I feel like what was I thinking about? Um. Oh, like you said, in the beginning of a relationship or whatever. That is so true. And I feel like you really learn how someone is when you move in together, because that's a whole other ball game. I just from like when me and my husband first moved in together, it was a rough patch at first, getting to know each other. And I mean, obviously it all ironed out and everything's fine, but I feel like that's when you really get to know someone, when you live together, and that can be that can make or break, I think.
Is it so hard to just ask that people come to the table clean?
Mm, wouldn't that'd be ideal, but I don't know what's wrong with people, man.
I think you'll have a way better life if you're able to be yourself. As long as you're not really hurting anybody else around you. Like
Yeah.
considering if
Yep.
you're being like here's the fine line of that. Being you instead of glamoring it up so people will like you is not the same thing as speaking what's on your mind. Because people that say
Yeah.
I speak what's on my mind, they're usually an asshole. Like they're
Yeah.
never nice people. They're like, you're fucking
Yeah.
this, you're that. And it's like, hang on a second. That's stepping the boundary of you're hurting somebody's feelings. There's a line where you say, I'm going to be myself. And that is when someone says, let's do this. And instead of saying, oh, sure, even though in your mind, you're like, I fucking hate this, you just be like, I don't really feel like doing that. Be clear about like who you are, what you enjoy, and you'll develop friendships, you'll develop a following, you'll develop things about you that people will want to listen to, people will want to be with, people that want to enjoy your company. But when you're basically building false friends, you're building a false audience, and that is one probably the most horrible things in the world.
Yeah, that's when you're really your happiest, I think. Like when I started working with my health coach, that is her main goal with her clients is she calls it being your authentic self. 'Cause I feel like anything else is just like too much. Like that has to be exhausting, to have to like put on an act or to be anything else but yourself. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure I wasn't myself for however long, but I feel like after working with her and just this past year of like cutting out people and negative stuff, like I truthfully have never been happier. People and if people don't like you for who you are, then fuck them.
The
Who are
biggest
they?
the bi-
Bye.
the biggest realization I had was every day at my job I ask, "How are you doing?" "Oh, good morning." And it's always, "Oh, how are you doing?" "I'm doing good. How are you doing?" And then like you know how hard it is saying that when you don't feel that? Like that is
Yeah.
like the biggest to me that is like it breaks my heart a little bit because I know so
Yeah.
many people that are just saying it. I look at them, I go, "Are you really okay?" Like, because Sometimes I get hit that question. I'm like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'm a little bit
Yeah.
lost. And it's like, I prefer that answer, even though that answer is scary. It's truthful. It's not trying to show people an image of yourself that you're not. I mean, I've lost multiple friends to suicide just in the past year alone on the aspect of like nobody knew the pain that they were hiding. People talk about
Yeah.
Robin Williams, for example.
Mm,
Amazing stand-up comic, did steal some stuff, but has his bits to he was a free flow, like kind of on his mind, never really wrote things down. So he would actually write
yeah.
checks to people that he actually used a part of their joke on accident because he was just on a roll. Um,
Yeah.
but he was talented, but he was hiding pain. And
Yeah.
they say that people that smile the biggest are probably the most sad. It's
Yeah.
usually true because a lot of times people really don't want to care how you're doing. They just want to know they just want that quick little filler word so they can get on to what they want to do. And that to me is like where it needs to start. We need to start looking at things like that. We need to start examining scenarios and different things before we start boiling down to our government and tearing it down or trying to fix it. We need to rip it from the floorboards. We need to find the first board, and that first board is, who are you? Who is yourself? Do people like you? Do you think people like you? What do you want to do? Look at these things because first, before you work on the neighborhood, you should be working on your own house.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I couldn't agree more. And I feel like that's why people just automatically say, "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" You know what I mean? Because I feel like we aren't really even asking that anymore. Well, I guess I'd say I'd care, but sometimes I just do it out of habit. You know what I mean? But not because we really care. We're just being polite. We're just being polite, and that's what we just say. You know, having a good day, you. But I
To
don't
me,
know.
that's just as impolite as saying I don't care. To me,
Right?
it's the exact same thing. You're just not using the
Don't really
words.
care.
It's
Yeah.
certain words I can say. I can throw a bunch of sophisticated words into a sentence to make me sound more intelligent, but when it boils down to it, I consider I know nothing. I have information and a bunch of different perspectives in my head, but I'm no better than anybody that isn't doing a podcast or is just on the street and random person. I'm no smarter than my nephew. Besides being able to use my fine motor skills in some capacity, he's he thinks honestly at a better level than I do. He's
Right.
so pure, doesn't know the hatred that a lot of what goes on into the world. And it kind of scares me a little bit because I look at it like, what are future generations going to hold if we're spending so much time trying to isolate and trying to leave this planet that we're on rather than understand the information that it holds and understand the people around us? There's community aspects where I say my heaven is like a 1950s diner because it seems like a little bit more of a simpler time, and that's
Yeah.
different issues aside, obviously, but the fact that nobody was down each other's throats, you would have the occasional person knock on your door like, excuse me, sir, do you want to buy a bomb shelter? Because a nuclear war could be coming. Besides that, it's still like people were like happy go lucky walking. I had this, and I've used this example before, where my buddy lives. We were skating to like I think a year ago to this grocery store, and we were like going to cut through this little community where every house looks the exact fucking same, like 100%, no distinct difference. It's like they just build them up like fucking rabbits, and we were skating through it to cut through and we got lost. I'm like, did we take the left? Did we take the right? And as we were lost in this thing for an hour and we're not that far. We're like maybe if a 5-minute drive to the store from his house. So we were in this giant community for an hour and a half lost because every turn looked exactly the same. There were just so many
Yeah.
neighborhoods that spun around. But the one thing I was noticing, I was like, are we on drugs? And he's like, I don't know. It feels like we're on drugs because we can't get out of here. I'm like, not even that. Do you notice there are people pushing a stroller down the street and kids scootering? Like, I haven't seen that since 2000. Like, this is fucking weird. Like, we're in a drug trip. And he goes, yeah, everyone's like waving and walking their dogs. And there's a fucking open ping pong table across the field where people are playing ping pong. And I'm like, did we slip into like some 2000 era, like before 9/11 or something? And he's like, I don't know, man. This is really weird. And it was like, you start to realize, oh shit, this doesn't happen anymore. Nobody goes out to their fucking street and skates. Like, you can't just send your kid out into the street skateboard anymore without them getting abducted.
All right. I feel this world has changed so much, and I always said that I wish I grew up in like the 50s or 60s when it was such a simpler time. And I do say, because I'm considered like a older millennial or whatever. I was born in 88, and I always feel blessed because like the first half of my life I played outside and there were no cell phones and there was no computer and internet. So I really got to experience both, because there's pros and cons to both. But I really feel like that was such a simpler time, and you could play outside and you didn't have to be so scared all the time. I'm sure messed up things happened back then, but it just seems that it's everywhere these
I almost
days.
got
It's like, what
abducted over a funnel cake.
what?
I think I might have mentioned this story before, but I was at an amusement park with my grandma, and she went to the
Yeah.
bathroom, and a guy, I was probably like 12 years old or something. A guy was like, "Hey, like, can you help me find my horse?" And we're at a fucking amusement park, so there are horses there. There's like they have the rodeo show or whatever the hell it is, and he was working like the rodeo thing, and he was like, "You want to help me find my horse?" And I'm like, "Fucking, I know the you want to help me find my dog. I've never heard the you want to help me find." No one warned me about that. That was not an excuse they could use. And I was like, I don't know if I should, leave here because I'm waiting for my grandma to get out of the bathroom because it'll only take a minute. I'll get you a funnel cake. And then I started
How
fucking
old did you say you were?
like 12, maybe. I was probably
Okay.
younger, maybe 11. Um,
Yeah.
it makes it a little bit better. Kind of like
Yeah.
you think, hold on, I don't want to go off on this tangent. Um, start going towards them, and my grandma comes out of the bathroom, grabs my arm, and goes, "What are you doing?" And this guy just says, "Never mind," and just walks away. And my grandma
Never
asked, and I,
mind.
I told him, she was like, "Oh my God, we're getting out of here." But yeah, that was my funnel cake scenario. But here's what's funny: you said you're born in '88,
Hmm.
so they're using
Yeah.
stem cells from babies of the '80s. Think those could be your class. Those could have been your classmates,
It's weird.
potential classmates.
That's weird to think about, man. Ugh, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about it to say, but I just feel like maybe because I've looked into like adrenochrome and all that, I just feel like anything with like babies, and I don't know, it just skeeves me out. But again, I don't know enough about it to
Hmm.
say, but I
You
feel
did
like
you
it
hold
just all
on?
skeeves me out.
Did you listen to my Brandon episode, the skeptic one?
I think so. Wait, was that the welder?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they make the baby comfortable.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know what
yeah.
that comes from, right? I sent you the link
No,
to it.
what?
The guy who was pro abortion in like the late term stages, he talked
Okay.
about. So what happened was this is true. People can look it up. Like if you're a motorcycle victim and they don't contact your next of kin, or they don't have like your next of like you're out of state, let's say you're across country, they will say that you
Yep.
died and they will not resuscitate you, and then they will use your organs for a nearby donor. So that actually
Yep.
happens when babies are born. For instance, they would let the mom know that the baby died or something like that, and they would send this baby, and they would have vans pick it up in airplanes and all these things, and they had a valuable window for stem cells, was like the
Yep.
very like first, like I think couple days of when the baby was born. So that's where that big fear comes from with stem cells and all this stuff too, which
Yeah.
man, if you understand that that's a truth, then you should look at everything that gets sent to you or everything that gets put up and labeled a conspiracy. You should still not rule it out. Like I don't rule out
Right.
flat earth. I don't rule out the dinosaur thing. I don't rule out any of this
Right.
stuff because I have no fucking clue. And I think especially someone like myself that's able to talk to people that are involved in these things and get the clear answer for someone that works in the field, if it's true or not, I'm still open-minded to the possibilities. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, I don't rule anything out either. And that's why that adrenochrome thing, I'm sure you've probably heard of it, but just I don't know, using little babies like that for whatever to get high or whatever it does for you, it just sickens me, and it makes me think of like the women who they'll like steal them and cut the baby out of their stomach. I already
Hmm.
told my husband like one time, obviously showing, I don't really want to go anywhere by myself, or I want you to get me like a stun gun or something, because that shit really happens. They'll like say they got baby stuff on Craigslist, and then the lady will show up and They'll friggin' cut the baby right out of her stomach. There's some sick fucks in this world. There is some sick fucks in this world. And nothing shocks me. And that's why I won't rule anything out either. Like obviously I'll never have solid proof that that's true, but I really think most things, could be true these days. Nothing surprises me. Nothing.
I told people that there was a woman that was she had a baby because she was stabbed by a knife, and people were like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Yep, there was a woman that had no she was born without a
Yep.
vagina.
Yep. I know the story.
She was stabbed with a knife, and she had a fucking baby from it because there
And
was semen
yep.
on the blade.
Yep. That's
Fucking,
wild.
so everything could be possible. All I'm saying is
Anything is
don't
possible.
say it's 100% not true. Just
Yeah.
say I want to wait for my answer till a further time from now when we might
Yep.
be able to understand if it is.
Yep. Yep.
Plus, nobody's
Absolutely.
going to stab you with the out of the blank shirt on. They'll be cutting into my face. That's terrible.
Right? Who would do that?
I was part of a
Nobody.
gender reveal, technically, because someone was wearing that shirt.
Yep. That's so funny.
I'm part of everybody's family. No, just kidding.
I love it. That's why I had to have this one. It was between this one and there was one other one. I forget what it was though, but I went with this one. Had your face on it. I dig it. This shirt is so comfortable too. It's so like nice and soft.
I always like going a size bigger because I like it loose.
Yep, me too. Me too. I used to not do that, and now I feel like all my shirts are like too tight and stuff.
You want
So
to be
this one's
comfortable. Why would you want
perfect
to wear
size.
like a baby Gap t-shirt if it doesn't?
Right? Exactly.
It's so constricting. I'm just like, I'd rather wear a jacket all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you, man.
Well, Sarah, did we go through your checklist of questions you had for me?
They weren't questions. I just had some stuff about like COVID and stuff like that. Just I know it's a real sensitive topic, and I don't want to offend anyone or make them upset. Someone just asked me on my Instagram because I'll do like the where people can ask me questions, and someone asked me what I thought of COVID, and I debated even answering it. I even asked you, I'm like, do you think that's all right what I said? So I just like to make sure that what I say is truth, or if I don't know, I'll say that. And I just don't like to put misinformation out there because I feel like there's already so much misinformation out there. So I
It,
just basically want to make sure that everything I'm saying is true.
it's also hard to speak how you really feel about a situation and the fact that
Yeah.
some people might not like the answer to it. That's
Yeah.
that's the craziest thing is like if you say something just because you feel strongly about something, people consider that like you're trying to force wrong information or force them. It's like, no, you ask that person how they feel about COVID, they say it's bullshit. They're tired of living this isolated life, and then you consider them selfish. I'm like, you're not fucking listening to the scenario of what this person's probably gone through. Like this person
Yeah.
feels like, and when you start policing other people instead of policing your own actions, that's an issue. I don't like that.
Yeah. And having as many followers as I do, for a while there, I was like real careful about what I said, but you know what? I'm going to say how I feel, and as long as I'm respectful, I feel like fuck it. Just because I have a lot of followers, I'm allowed to have an opinion, and I feel like if I'm respectful and kind and open minded about it, if someone else doesn't like it, then that's their problem, not mine.
I had
We all
I
learn from each other.
So I have a question for you that you don't have to answer.
Sure.
I don't think I've ever asked this to you, and I know it's been on my
Okay.
mind probably since the first time. Do you think that a lot of people follow you just because you're a woman welder?
Mm, yeah. I mean, I don't think. Well,
Because a lot of the questions you get on your story that you post are all about like, what's it like being a woman welding? And I'm like, I get it, but she's also just a welder. She's not really like I mean, yeah, you're a
yeah.
woman, but at the same time, like, does that ever get tasking? It's like if someone says to me, it's like, you're a white podcaster. I'm like, what the fuck is that shit?
Say yes and no. I think that's what gained me traction at first. Just because I know other men who are good welders and have pictures of good welds, and they also have a lot of followers. But I want to say yes, but it may not be bad because I have a huge network of other women welders. and they follow me, because we can relate and because of that. So I don't look at it a bad way that way, but I think yes, I've even admitted that to my friends. Not to toot my own horn, but I feel like for a welder, I'm cute, and I feel like a lot of women welders. I don't know how to say this. I don't want to like offend anyone, but like out of all the girl welders at my work, I mean, there are a few others, but not a lot of them are like into feminine things or whatever. So I feel like a girl who is into makeup, bag, shoes, and also likes to get dirty, I feel like it's not that they don't exist. We are just fewer and far between. So I feel like that is why maybe a lot of men follow me. My audience is like 80% men.
Some people consider me feminine on the things that I like and don't like. I don't like getting dirty. I don't not a fan of that. I
Yeah.
don't like I mean, my hands are rough because I work out all the time, but at the same time, like I don't like getting dirt all over my hands. I don't like getting covered in mud. I don't like doing like, if my truck gets stuck or car gets stuck in a ditch, shoveling it out. Like I don't like things that people are like, well, that's what a man does. No, it's just weird how like we think that way just because it's been going on for so long. It's like that's gotta evolve too. The lingo a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I look at it as a good and bad thing. I mean,
Except
some
WAP.
guys,
Why the fuck can I say WAP anymore?
what?
WAP.
Like the song?
There's a
Are you talking
song.
about the slang for an Italian person? Or what do you say
That's
WAP
not what
for?
it means anymore.
Right, well, WAP, the Cardi B song?
I thought like
Wet ass.
WAP was like, yeah, now that's what it is. So it's all right. So now it's wet ass pussy. You can't say that. But WAP used to be like WAP, WAP, WAP. I thought it was like a dance move.
Okay, maybe. I
I'm
just
gonna
know
get
growing up, I
canceled.
feel WAP is also it can also be a derogatory term for an Italian, like a Dago, WAP, a Guinea.
You also
But
can't freaking do the OK symbol anymore.
oh, I just sent it to you too.
Don't do
Why?
that. Don't do that. That's white
Sorry.
supremacy.
Honest to God, I did not know that. I did not
I
know
found
that.
that out in a podcast, and she was like, "Stop! You're gonna get canceled." I was like, "What?" And I don't know. See, people like that's what scares me is like you can like change something so much or something goes, and it's like it's in initial intent supposed to be good, but then it goes sour like a monkey's paw. Like you get the four wishes, but each wish you make ends up being bad. It's like, does that mean that? Does the shocker symbol still mean two in the pink and one in the stink, or is
One
that
distinct.
different now?
People are just way too sensitive these days. Way too sensitive. I feel like if there's something like I don't even think I feel like another guest yours just said this not that long ago. But I feel like if there's something that bad that like happened in history or whatever, don't cancel it. Let's
Kelly.
learn from it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Let's learn from it. Let's not cancel it, erase it, pretend it didn't happen. That's how we learn from things. If we erase it, I feel like we're gonna be bound to repeat it. I just people need to stop being so sensitive. Like Dr. Seuss, Dr. Seuss. People
Yeah,
are offended by Dr. Seuss. What the
it's
fuck?
I mentioned it on my Easter episode. It's easier to cancel something that nobody's really doing anymore rather than canceling someone that is still trying to produce things today. You can cancel a
Yeah.
cartoon character because nobody's revamping Elmer Fudd anymore. But when you start canceling things that are happening today, like an actor, it has to be a very serious crime, like Army Hammer eating his girlfriend's or trying to eat his girlfriend's ribs.
Who is Army Hammer? Yeah,
Some
I've
actor.
heard you say him, but I've never heard of him. Oh.
Some like Ashton Kutcher looking type.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I feel like some real fucked up shit deserves to be canceled, but people just want to cancel everything that offends them. I don't know. I hope I'm not raising my kid to be a pussy, man.
I'm ending on that. That is fucking perfect.
Okay. Good note. Good note.
Sarah, where can people find your Instagram and also any other links that you have? I have my Sarah sticker on my probably most precious item, which is my USB interface for my microphone.
Oh, yay. So you can find me on Instagram at Sarah period Jean 48 SARA period JEAN 48. And recently I changed my TikTok name to the same. All the other episodes, it was like Sarah Jean Jacket, but I changed them to be the same. So you can find me at Sarah period Jean 48 on both platforms.
And I'll make sure I link it all in the description. And that was another episode of Out of the Blank Podcast.